Hello there. Let's have a little bit more talk about opinion polls because they're honestly fascinating and weird and so screwed up and such a byproduct of the political world that we live in. So, for example, we have an opinion poll for preferred Prime Minister, even though we don't vote for Prime Minister in this country. We vote for a party. But this kind of polling leads complete idiots who don't know how to think for themselves and run their own political parties to make stupid calls like we need a snap election because the Prime Minister stepped down and it's unconstitutional not to. But it's those little parties that I want to have a chat to you about today, because in last night's opinion poll, only 2 of these fringe parties managed to get anywhere near 1% in polling, and that was New Conservatives and the New Zealand Democracy Party, a Democracy NZ party. They got 1% each. The rest didn't even register. And that's quite fascinating because they like to play a big game and talk themselves up, but realistically, they're not growing their market and their audience. They are not talking to voters, and voters don't want to deal with them. And one of the things that's really fascinating to see is something like New Conservatives, who have actual policies like you're not allowed to look at porn unless you ask your ISP first. They're polling on 1%. Now, these fringe groups have always been loud minorities. And getting to be a loud minority means you get angry at everything, you get upset at everything, and you feel really impotent, which I'm sure is also something that the New Conservatives can tell you about. What's really interesting, though, is that none of these groups are going to actually band together to try and work out how they're going to hit that magic 2.5% mark that they're likely to get to when it comes to this year's general election. And yet, it probably will be that low if voter turnout is consistent with what we've seen in the past. So you see something like Outdoors and Freedom, The Vision, Umbrella, NMP, One, whatever hell else is out there at the moment. They're tracking poorly because they're garbage fire parties that nobody in their right mind would actually want to be involved with. New Conservatives and Democracy NZ, I'm still not quite sure why they're tracking as high as they are, but I also don't know why ACT is tracking as high as it is. The tricky thing here is trying to make sure that we keep our expectations in check as voters. I expect them to do poorly. I'd like to keep it that way. And these groups are so narcissistic and self-centered, the idea of actually working with another party to try and achieve a goal is just not something that they are willing to really consider seriously. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be paying attention to the harm that they can cause, the problems that they can cause during the election. But it is still fascinating to see how poorly they did on the polls.